Hi, welcome back to another episode of Relatable. I am your host, Stephanie Michelle. This is the show where we highlight exceptional human encounters, the people who make them happen, and the actions it takes to create them. We are recording this show on Saturday, March 23rd. It's a weekend where the LA Marathon is happening, and of course, many of us are on the edge of our seats waiting to find out what exactly is in that Mueller report. Will we know this weekend? Will we ever know? Who knows, but we're waiting for that news to break. A little fun fact about today. Last night there was a big film shoot down in downtown Los Angeles. I had the fortunate pleasure of having a light shine through my bedroom window the entire night while they were filming. And then this morning walking in, there were fake $100 bills all over the ground that we had to walk through. They were cleaning them up, they were getting to it, but it obviously was some fun video, fun filming that happened last night. It was kind of funny. My dog pooped right on those $100 bills too, by the way. Like, as soon as he knew they were not real, he was like, this is not cool. That's what's going on here. Anyhow, the question that's on my mind today is, what's a healthy ratio of participating in inclusive groups versus exclusive groups? I want you to think about that. We're going to dive into that in some different aspects. And I feel it's very important to state a couple things before today's conversation with my guest takes place. This show is a labor of love for me in every way possible. No one pays me to do this. I feel very called to inspire people to think about how they're relating in the world, especially pertaining to one's health. I also am constantly learning, and I certainly don't have everything figured out. I have no ties to people at NASA. That seems like an odd fact right now, but you'll understand why I'm saying that soon enough. But I do have friends in the scientific community. I learned about my guest today after he appeared in a Netflix doc called Behind the Curve. This documentary is about people who believe the earth is flat. They're commonly called flat earthers. I think they might, I don't know how that phrase came about, but people that identify with the idea that the earth is flat call themselves flat earthers. And my guest today, his name is Lamar Glover. He is an artist, he's an activist, he's a physicist, and he does some pretty cool things, really cool things. He knows about a lot of stuff. He earned his master's in physics at Cal State Los Angeles with a research background in optics and material science related to the laser interferometer, thank you. See, smart. Gravitational wave observatory, which I'm definitely going to ask what that is when we get to talk to Lamar. He is the co-author of 2 publications in scientific journals. Yeah. Welcome, Lamar.
Thank you.
What is that?
Oh, the Laser Interferometer Gravitational Wave Observatory, also known as LIGO. Okay. Because, you know, one thing that like activists and scientists have in common is they love their acronyms. Yeah. So LIGO basically is a device that helps us detect gravitational waves from different sources in the universe. Okay. There's 2 locations. One is in Hanford, Washington. Another one is in Livingston, Louisiana. And they're kind of both, what they have in common is that they're in the middle of nowhere in rural parts of the state. They're not exactly tourist attractions, but there was a place where they can get lots of land, and the apparatus has arms that are kilometers long, and it has a center full of mirrors and lights and lasers that basically interact with one another in a way that helps us detect basically if space and time itself is stretching or compressing by basically how it disturbs a machine in of itself. I could go into exactly how it works, but that'd be like, I think that would eat up a lot of our time. Yeah. But the cool thing about it is that if you Google it, particularly on YouTube, like LIGO, L-I-G-O, and how it works, there's some really cool videos that, and I think the visual representation with it helps out a whole lot than my oral narrative may, you know.
So I could have said LIGO instead of trying to take on all of those words.
That's true.
That's true. See, learned something already.
My apologies.
No, it's all right. No, they were both there. You gave them to me both, and I was like, I'm going to go for the big words, even though me and big words don't get along very well.
Well, all I know, LIGO can stand for something else. You know, like Long Island Golfers Organization or something.
That's like pretty off the cuff right there. Yeah, it could. Well, so I like to ask people when they join me on the couch, like, is there anything that's like pulling your attention right now? Like, what's on your mind before we get into our conversation today?
I think what's pulling my attention is this nature of life in and of itself. I feel really lucky and blessed to be here and having these conversations with folks, and how sometimes seeds that we plant years ahead of time, how they can blossom in ways you wouldn't imagine, and also in ways that are really fulfilling.
Yeah.
You know, it's I did that talk that got featured in that documentary, and something that I thought was fulfilling, like you mentioned, like a labor of love, you know, and talked about something that was important to me, and I had an opportunity to tie it in with the Flat Earther conversation. And now I'm having opportunities to continue to tie in the broader theme with the Flat Earther conversation. So it's something that's kind of started off as a seedling and is blossoming into a tree. And it's nice.
Yeah.
It's nice.
We actually, Dee and I, Dee that's on the other side of the camera, we were talking about this before you got here today. Like, you just never know, like, your impact, and it's nice. Like, it could happen in your lifetime, some of the things that you're working on or talking about, or it might happen afterwards. But, you know, and I hope that's encouraging to everybody, because we see so much in our culture, like, immediate feedback, right? Like, social media, sensationalized immediate feedback, or immediate response, immediate call out, and maybe it's easy to think, well, if no one's paying attention, it doesn't matter, but it does matter.
Right.
It does matter,
Right.
you know? So you never, you know, I would encourage anybody, if you think nobody's paying attention, and that.
No, you'd be surprised.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. That's why he's here. Like, I thought you were the best part of that doc, but we're going to get to that.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
So just tell me a little bit about you. Where'd you grow up? Like, you know.
Well, I grew up on the East Coast, 80s baby, and was born and went to high school in New Jersey, spent some time in Maryland, spent some of that Maryland time in Southern Maryland, and shout out to all the folks in Calvert County, Maryland. Yeah. That time obviously was really influential to me, particularly my time in Montclair, New Jersey. Shout out to Montclair High School, you know, go Mounties. It was all those things were really what shaped my future. I was the first person in my family to go to college, and my kind of matrilineal lineage, and it was like, you know, the American narrative, the American dream, which is like, yo, go to school, get a job, yada yada yada. I went to school and I got kind of disillusioned with things, and also too just being young, and like I've become of the mindset that I'm not certain that everyone's best interest is for them to go directly from high school to college. And it's funny for someone with like 2 degrees. You think I'm definitely about education. It's very important, but I don't think that education comes necessarily just from academia. And I think it's important to, when you're ready, when you're there in that space, that you're ready to really focus and really have an idea what you want to get out of it, and move forward that way.
So damn expensive. You got to, right?
Yeah,
like, you really have to value.
Yeah, if you want to find yourself and hang out with young people, you can just have a job and do that in your nights and weekends. It actually, not only is it cheaper, you get paid to have a job.
Right, yeah.
So like, you actually don't go to debt doing that.
Definitely.
But there's definitely a lot of value in academia, and I've learned a lot of the times I spent within those institutions. They're just really expensive.
Was there anything particular that drew you to science? Or
yeah, I always had like a disposition to it. When I was in high school, I was a big old band nerd, and
I was an orchestra nerd.
Oh yeah, nice. And I was in math and science league. It was a way to get out the house after school and like, hey, do you want to do a math quiz and get some free food?
I definitely was not that.
Oh yeah, my mom had a strict reins on me, so if I was out the house, I had to be out the house for a reason. Yeah. So that was just another way to get out the house. So if it wasn't sports, then it was definitely like, you know, that. So I did that, and that was fun. But if I think that taking a free test in your spare time is fun, that kind of gives you a disposition of like, or an idea of what I think is fun. And like, when I went to school for my undergrad degree, I originally went to get a degree in biology, but I left after changing my degree 2 times after that to major in cultural anthropology. I just wasn't in a spot where I connected with the subject matter at that point in time and how it was taught. And also, I don't think I was ready for the rigor and discipline of doing the sciences in higher education at that point in time, which is fine. I mean,
it's honest, it's real.
Yeah, it's like I don't think every 18-year-old is ready to do a bunch of lab hours at night and they do like lab reports and stuff, and I think that's fine.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's kind of what led me away from the sciences, but I always had that niche for it. While I was in college, I got really involved in like kind of in politics, and I got really involved in the nonprofit sector out of that. And I had a bunch of nonprofit jobs here in LA from like 2003 all the way to 2014. And whenever I was at those jobs, somehow I wound up being the in-house IT guy, you know, or the guy who was putting things together or doing a website, making a database, things of that nature. It was just, I'm just naturally, I have a
good at deconstructing things, kind of figuring out how they have to,
putting them together. You know, other day I just made a computer, and my partner, she was very wary of the process. I was like, I've done this before. Yeah. But all she saw me doing was going back and forth to Fry's, buying expensive stuff. And then when she saw it put together and working, and she was like, wow. She didn't say that she didn't think I could do it, but I could tell that she was impressed that I did do it. You know, and I think that was just because from her perspective that putting a computer together is like a thing that not mere mortals do.
No, right? Just, like putting a computer together is literally walking into Apple and buying it. Right? Like, I'll put one together.
Yes, I put my card inside the machine and they gave me a computer. I put it together.
So I'm guessing, so your social media handle is Nameless Nation, and I'm guessing this has a tie to some of the nonprofit, but you tell me, what is it?
Well, actually it has a lot to do with my hip hop background. One of the things I did in the world I was involved in nonprofits was I was really involved with the LA underground scene. For a period of time I went from a participant to staff to a board member to a co-director of this program called JUICE. It's like any good nonprofit, it's an acronym for Justice, United, and Creative Energy, and it still happens every Saturday in MacArthur Park, noon to 4. It's basically a free practice space for all elements of hip hop. There's a graffiti area, there's a b-boy, b-girl area, the DJ space for DJs to come in and kind of practice things and try out their sets. Kind of the same way, you know, comedians kind of drop into a comedian's comedy store.
That?
And then they can practice their DJ stuff. DJs can do that too there. And then also there's like a beat production and MC workshop as well.
Nice.
I was fortunate enough to be involved with that for a long period of time. And so through that involvement, I got to sharpen my skills and hone them as an MC. My MC name was Nameless. I added a nation name to it just because I feel like it more encapsulated. I'm not necessarily a nameless person, you know. Yeah. But also like, it just kind of the feeling of it, the name of it, went more with my quote unquote brand. Also for disambiguation purposes. Fun fact, Nameless is like the Joe of MC names. In every neighborhood, there's a guy named Nameless. Oh, yeah. And some may spell it differently, this, that, and the other. But I like the idea of like, how do I differentiate myself from someone? And I think the way I would do it is the fact that I'm not just a nameless person, but there's a host of a cavalcade of people around me, connected to me. And it's hard to put a name on it or a category on it. I've lived a very fortunate and diverse, eclectic life, and all those influences run through me. It gives me like really, I think, not necessarily unique perspectives, but it colors my perspective that I don't think that everyone has or shares. And my last project I did, I called it Beyond, because I thought it was beyond classification. I don't say it was beyond everyone else's projects or anything like that, but just putting labels on things is hard, especially when you feel like, it's just really hard to do that, and I feel like I don't fit into boxes very neatly. Yeah, I like that. I can relate to that. I also, what was coming up for you when you were sharing this theme of interdependence. It's like, you know, it's popular in our culture right now to like stand out and go, this is me, and almost self-label to say I'm unique and different. But what's not popular, but what is very real to me, and I don't know if you can relate to this, is like, nobody's self-made. Like nobody, you know, like we got like our family that has taught us, like told us stories. We have people
in our education system, in our
Right.
careers that have been mentors and motivate us, and even in your present circle, like people that keep you going, that
Yeah.
say like, I see you, and like
Yeah.
I might just support you, I might not get it,
Right.
you know, but I support you. So this idea of staying connected to how important interdependence is,
Right.
I think is...
No, it's definitely true. And I think that's one of the reasons I like to pluralize my identity is because of that. I would not be literally right here, right now, if it wasn't for a legion of people behind me in ways that are beautiful, important, some ways even constructive, destructive, that have led me to be who I am. You
Yeah,
know?
I feel that.
Yeah.
So how did you end up in Behind the Curve? And can you share with everybody what you said? Do you remember what you said?
Yeah,
and then
yeah.
and then of course ask why did you
Right.
feel compelled to say that?
So the way I wound up at that was that I've, through my just life and travels and yada, 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 I went back to school. I was in nonprofit sector for a while, got kind of burnt out, and I wanted to really do something for a career switch that fed my interest. And I figured going into the sciences would be a really good way to do that. I think that for everyone at home, if you're thinking about a career switch, regardless of what direction you're thinking of, definitely do it. I think that it's never too late, and there's ways, you'd be surprised, like the ways you can get something done if you actually just dig a little bit and figure it out. Like having a bachelor's degree that's about 10 years old in cultural anthropology is not going to get me into a doctorate program at Caltech, right? However, having a bachelor's degree in something can get you into all kinds of programs. And I'm sure that's the same way for like anything. Like just because you have an MBA doesn't mean you can't go to culinary school. Just because you went to culinary school doesn't mean you can't be a mechanic. You know, you literally can do whatever you want to do if you have to not be attached to a specific way of doing it or a specific channel of making that thing happen. And I wasn't. So I did a little bit of research and I found out that going to Cal State LA, and not every Cal State has a master's in physics program, but the one that was down the street from my house just so happened to have one.
Nice.
So I applied and got involved with that. What was normally going to be a 2-year program became a 3-year program for me because I did an unofficial post-bac in physics. So I basically did a handful of like physics courses to get caught up to the grad level. And being a grown adult helps a lot, you know, with focus and drive. And particularly if you've gone off the beaten path so much so that you're here right there, it helps. So once again, what I did was it's cool, but it's not undoable. You know? It's very doable. So I did that, and through that process, I actually had a friend of mine from back in New Jersey who was at the same time as I was doing my thing at Cal State LA. She was doing a postdoctorate at Caltech. It was a very small world thing, and it was good to connect with her. And through her, I began to connect with, and in other avenues, I became to connect with the astronomy community in the Los Angeles area. There was folks I met through that and through a couple of workshops, and then also my research with LIGO. But then I was asked by the person who's running that particular workshop if I wanted to speak one of the days, and like what I wanted. I could speak up whatever I wanted to, long as it was science related, and I did. My talk was about basically dismantling the scientific superiority complex, and it was about the theme of making science more inclusive, and not poo-pooing or looking down on mere mortals who can't, like, you know, do like a differential equation, you know.
Sure.
Like,
that don't like me, that don't like algebra or not a math person.
Truth be told, half physicists can't do it either. That's why they make equations to do them and stuff like that, and like and coding and software to do them and stuff like that. It's okay for folks to find different ways to do the sciences. And I was also told that while you're doing this this presentation, there'll be some folks doing a documentary on flat earthers. And if you can tie in like a point or two about flat earthers into this talk, that'd be great. So I was like, okay, I'll add a slide or two about flat earthers in there. And I was asked to sign a release, and that's a very common thing in LA. You go somewhere, and you're like, oh, you want a beer at this pub? Oh, we're filming a trivia night, so sign a release. Oh, you want to shop at Target? Well, we're doing a commercial here. Sign a release.
Ellen's going to be here.
Right. Oh, yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
oh, you're at the doctor's office? Well, you're going to be in the lobby. Sign a release. So, like, So I didn't think anything of it.
Yeah.
And I did my talk, and the way I found out about it was that a friend hit me up on Facebook. The guy I know, a really nice guy, he was like, "You did a really good job in that documentary." And I was like, "Well,
you didn't even know that you totally made in it?
And I was like,
wow.
"What documentary are you talking
Yeah, like, what am I in?
Yeah, he was, and he told me, and I watched it, and it was, I like the way it portrayed the flat earthers. It made them look like people, because they are people.
Yeah.
And it pointed out their flaws, but didn't spend too much time on that, because that's not really the way you get across to them, And
what did you say?
And what I said, yes, I basically was talking about, in the context of the larger idea of dismantling the scientific superiority complex, is that you can't look down on people, even people that are wrong. I don't think it's right to call people, I made a comment about the idea of calling people crazy. Crazy is an umbrella term, and it's dismissive.
Yeah.
As soon as you say someone's crazy, you just put them in the not with us category, they're over there. Because crazy what is that? Are they narcissists? Are they schizophrenic?
It's just dismissive.
Are they bipolar? Or you just don't agree with them? Or they made you mad and you don't want to talk to them anymore? Those are all very different things. And they should all be handled very differently.
Yeah.
But it's just kind of like a lazy umbrella term to just, and everyone in that room I'm positive had been called crazy by someone who was on the out with them at one point in time.
Yeah.
So it's not a very effective descriptor. And if you look at someone who's really invested into an ideology and is going out of their way to have talking points about it and doing experiments and having conferences, this and the other, you're looking at someone who's going out of their way as a labor of love in their free time to be a scientist. Are they a good scientist? Probably not.
A couple of those guys were, man. In terms of trying to doing
right,
some cool
in terms
stuff,
of but not. They weren't bad scientists. Excuse me.
It's okay. You remember your team's behind you too.
Excuse me.
Because I got you talking a lot.
Right.
I'm like, I need to fill some space here because I need to give you a little break. Yeah.
They're not bad.
Silence is okay, right? I always say, we're so gotta fill every moment, but it's nice to.
Yeah.
You can have a little
to
pause.
breathe.
Yeah, totally.
Well, they're good scientists in the way they ran their experiments, and that's something I definitely agree with. They're good scientists in the fact that they're inquisitive, and they're willing to act on their inquisitive nature. The crucial thing that makes them not good at science is the fact that they cannot accept their findings, and they have emotional attachment to a result. I have lots of issues with science as a whole, and from my time in it.
Like the science community.
The science community. But there's one of the most amazing things I've learned from the science community since I've been involved with it is I've never heard more adults say "I don't know" in my entire life. Like that's a thing. Like you're not it's an unabashed just admittance of ignorance. I have a luxury of working at a firm that makes microfluidic devices, and they do a really good job and have all kinds.
Don't even know what that is.
It's basically a kind of a device that's going to be used for point of source testing. The things that you may think of off the top are like diabetes blood sugar testing or like a pregnancy test.
Got it.
So they have these devices, and they're just plastic and glue and some membranes and yada yada, and you use them to basically detect like, oh, my glucose level is this, or I'm going to have a baby.
I got a picture in my mind.
So what the company I work with does, they make devices like that. Yeah. And they work with people from all over the world, and companies big and small, and schools, institutions, and in order to, I have the luxury and privilege of working in the scientific community to produce a product, and like the clients, the people I work with, and everyone else is devoted to getting the right answer because they want to make a product that works. Yeah. And you can't do that by lying to yourself. Right. Right. So like if you say, oh, this totally works, and like you don't know if it works or not.
Well, we got a great example of that out right now. Yeah. What's the doc about Elizabeth Holmes and Therios?
I haven't seen that.
Yeah, it's a good example of exactly what we're talking about. But back to your point, when someone says, I don't know, right. There's a couple things that happen. Like, first of all, there's the vulnerability of like, okay, I'm dealing with someone that's real, and it's just human. Like, you kind of almost immediately get diffused in that and have some compassion. When someone says, I don't know, okay, well, and then the next step, well, I'm going to find out, or take some steps to find out. But I don't know also shows that somebody is learning. Like they're actually really committed to the process of learning, which I think is really important. I think that honestly, that learning is such a natural order of things, and more so as innovation happens faster and we're exposed to more information all the time. And to resist that, to say, I know absolutely 100%, feels like that would be very painful. I say I don't know a lot, you know, but it feels like that would just be so like, gosh, especially in the face of all of this information.
It's a freeing thing to not know something and to be devoted to just that and walking away from it, or in the cases of just figuring it out.
As a scientist, it seems like it's an opportunity. Like when you could say, I don't know, it's like, ooh, cool, I get to find out.
That's what I can do now.
I got a project.
Exactly. And, or just the fact that, like, let me Google it, and there's people who've been working on this exact question for years, and here is your answer. And like someone spent like years of their life devoted on your specific question, and now you have an answer, and you can just literally, in your spare time, do what they did and verify that. Someone did all the hard work for you, and that's the thing that happens. That's the beauty of like scientific papers and journals and things of that nature.
So on that point, so what are some of the steps to verify that something is true or false? Like are there just basic steps that a scientist is kind of trained to take? Like when they hit a I don't know moment, like, okay, what's the first step that they take to kind of test or prove?
So generally, you know how we're taught the whole like hypothesis conclusion thing? That's not, you're not supposed to have a hypothesis. That's like one of the top 10 things you're taught in school that you really probably shouldn't do. Is one thing you can do is have a series of observations. Like you don't need to necessarily have an interest in what the outcome can be, but if you need to have an experiment with identified variables and identified constants. Like let's say we're making pancakes, right? And we want to say which flour works the best, because we're SoCal, so we have all kinds of flours. You know? Like, you know, coconut flour, almond flour, hemp flour, which one makes the best pancake, right? So you can't just go willy-nilly. You'd have to use the same amount of water, same amount of eggs. You have to cook it the same temperature, same amount of time. So you have to have some constants in this experiment. And then you'd have to change the variable of the flour. And then once you identify the flours that work better or not, then you could change another variable. Like let's say, well, maybe I should turn the temperature down, but I'm going to stick with this type of flour. And it's like, that's the idea of like getting towards a solution. What is your goal? Your goal is, I want the most yummiest pancake. So you change one variable at a time, ideally working towards your solution. You can do a multivariable experiment where you have multiple things running, but it's important that when you do that, you track it.
In my world, I'm a marketer, so we do this with like digital ads. Like we, you know, really managing the variables. And to your point, you can't be attached. Like you can't say, well, I love almond butter, so I must love like almond flour. Because we're humans. When we like put a little love and attention towards something, like you might tweak it to like make the outcome to that. And if I would imagine if you knew that you were going to be attached to something, it might that might be where you kind of put the Coke and Pepsi test in, where you don't even know which one is A or B. Like only somebody else has that information, so you are not tempted.
Exactly.
To like
a really good experiment really puts it on the line, and like a really good experiment wouldn't have a qualitative assessment of yummy. It would have a quantitative assessment of like moisture or thickness or bounce or things that you
yummy is subjective.
Exactly.
Not
exactly.
Objective,
People have different preferences for texture, different preferences for taste. So if there was a way to really kind of focus on something that's quantitative, then that's the way to run an experiment. And that's the failing of what's happening with the flat earther community, is that they're doing these things, but they have an attachment to the outcome. They're trying to prove that the earth is flat, as opposed to doing an experiment to verify the shape of the world, or the earth that we live upon. And two is that they have an attachment to the outcome. So like that happened in the documentary, when they ran a good experiment. You know, they ran an experiment that proved the shape of the world. And that's impressive. They didn't, like, the average person on the street could not do that.
Yeah.
You know, like, if you go outside right now and ask somebody, hey, how would you prove the world's round or not round?
Yeah, they would know.
I'm not going to know, you know? But they did it.
Yeah.
But they didn't accept the answer.
Yeah.
And that's the problem of itself. It's not that they're good scientists in the fact that they can come up with reliable results, but they can't accept them. And that's interesting.
So from my side of just watching that, so I geek out on social behavior of things. Like I study the group behavior of demographics and what it takes to create an action. And so I look at that and I watch the doc and I look at it as like, we all want a sense of belonging, and we want to find our people, and feel good about that and feel safe, because a lot of times it doesn't feel safe right now to have like conversations outside of our comfort zone with people that are not like us. And so I see that, here's people that found each other online, because it's easy to do that. They had a conspiracy and they leaned into it, and they found each other and a community formed, and we're so, as humans, we're so conditioned that we want that sense of belonging, that even if they start to get a sense that maybe the earth is something else, that these are their buddies. There's fellowship here, so it would be hard to sort of separate that, because it's fun, it's interesting, but I also look at it where it starts to, where we can start to talk about, here's where inclusiveness has gone too far. When you're starting to really just be downright mean to other people, or just hate. I mean, just leaning into just absolute hate, violence. Whatever it is. That's where we know that that's kind of gone too far. It can be playful. It can, but you can have a belief. We have beliefs. We don't know each other. We could have beliefs that are not aligned. That doesn't mean I can't be your friend. Unless one of us starts to take a step towards hate, and it's too much, right? I mean, that's the part that I kind of pulled out of the whole thing, and I think that's why I wanted to connect with you, because there was something you were tuned into that too.
No, definitely. I think that it's really important to find those bridges between people. There's like, I thought one of the great things about the documentary was it pointed out the fact that the flat earthers are amongst us, and the fact that, like, you don't know, let's say 1 in 1,000 people are a flat earther, and that means the person that worked in your car, the person that fed you that day, the person that's your next door neighbor, the person watching your kid, they all could be flat earthers, It doesn't mean you have to, like, inspect your car or watch your food or go grab your kid right now. It just means that like there's you don't always know what people are thinking, and doesn't stop them from being a member of your community, and doesn't mean that they're out to get you necessarily. I think that it's important to be inclusive and try to bridge those things and not throw the baby out with the bathwater. We're in this space right now where we're really working. I feel like it's a continuation of the 90s movement of multiculturalism, where not only are we like creating space for people to be here and be in their full identity, which is a huge thing, instead of trying to get everyone to kind of like the back in the day with Henry Ford and the assembly line, getting everyone to be kind of like the melting pot and everyone be the same cookie cutter. We're embracing the salad, and right now instead of a soup or a melting pot, we're a salad. But now the next step is like, hey, there's things in the salad that are bad. Like there's like, some bad agents in here and some bacteria, some mold, and it's hurting parts of your salad, and you need to get it out of there, and like and it's not okay for us to just, I think that's where we are. And I think in some of our efforts to do that, we're still refining the process. Like right now we're in the midst of cancel culture. And some people do need to be canceled, like the Bill Cosbys and the Harvey Weinsteins of the world. There's no like place for them in polite society, pardon the phrase, I don't want to make light of the horrible things that they're doing. It's not polite, It's beyond that.
So there's cancel, and then there's call out, which like we're making decisions in the call-out culture
Right.
to cancel somebody out that
Right.
might not, shouldn't be canceled out.
I just don't think it's the most effective way of doing things. I think that creating boundaries is an important thing, and it kind of piggybacks on what you're saying about the idea of having a boundary around including people. I think that I'm like, there's a difference to me in terms of violence, in terms of between self-defense and aggression, and oppression, right? You know, I definitely think that people have the right, if they're being victimized, to defend themselves, but I think that violence is a last resort and everything like that. I don't think that violence in and of itself is inherently like a bad thing if you're being victimized. Like if you're in an alley and someone's attacking you, yeah, you should defend yourself. And if you're in a place where things are being, it gets murky when you get to the large scale of politics, obviously. But there's a difference between someone who's like a person defending himself against let's say a violent rape. It's not the same as someone who's like a Proud Boy in Charlottesville. You know, those are very different people.
Very different things.
Right.
And I think if there's anything has been brought to light in the last 18 months is that it's not that binary. Like, you know, we have been really taught a lot that it's black, white, you know, this or that, and it's not. There's context, and with this fast everything, we've forgotten how to value and pay attention and reach for the context of stuff. And we don't have to make a decision at all about things. Like, we can stop and do some testing and learning and talk to people, but you know, nothing's that binary.
No, not at all, not at all. And like these flat earthers are people who, like, I'm positive, like that conference, if they had the wherewithal to, you know, some of them are homeschooling the children. Some of them, like, they went to a conference in Pasadena from all over the nation, all over the world. So they're gainfully employed, you know. They're probably even pretty good at their jobs, reading what they are. So there's a lot of things that they're doing that we would, as a society, would applaud, you know. So I think it's really important to try to find those bridges and those values. And then that, I'm not saying you have to, like, high-five them for having a bad idea, but throwing them away and dismissing them is like not helpful, and insulting them is not helpful, and it doesn't create a space for someone to say I don't know, or even to change their stance, you know. So
how I see it is, like, I really want everyone to have a group that they feel safe with.
Yes.
You know, you have a right to be authentic and feel safe. That's a basic human right. Safety. So we all should have that. We all have that with family, friends, whatever. But to me, there's the next wave of this is, like, in these particular groups, like, someone has to be nominated as the relator and start to move into groups that they don't have comfort with, so we can stay connected. So we, you know, we can make decisions where everybody's voice is heard. So we can look at some of the things that are happening to our planet. Like, that's, like, to me, the next wave. Everybody's voice is there because of social media and we found each other. But, like, now, how do we connect? You know, that's what I'm most passionate about when I see these things. So the last question, of course, I have to ask on this, you know, to really wrap this conversation up is, how do you personally know that the Earth is not flat?
Because my mama told me. But shout out to you, Ma. I love you. But I mean, besides just I guess there is, like, flat earthers are not wrong when they say that there's a dogma, quote unquote, that the Earth is round. That's technically true, but not all dogma is, like, false. Some of it is just fact. You know, like, the sun is hot. You know, there's things we're taught at a very young age, and we just become part of the ethos of our society that we don't question, right? But some of them are facts. Some of them are not facts, and they're hurtful and harmful, and that's a real thing. But some of them are facts. Now, so the reason I know the world to be round is because I was taught that before I was taught the fact of how it was, how to prove that it's round, right? And that's true for a lot of things. So that's one of the reasons why I have so much sympathy for them, you know. And but the way I know it's round, and this is something that people in California on the West Coast can do, or anywhere where basically the sun sets into the ocean, it's a fun test, and it's an excuse to go to the beach on sunset.
Nice, I like it.
All right, so what you do basically is if you do this the correct way, you'll see the sun set twice. Now, you go to the beach and you watch the sun go into the water. And right as it goes into the water, you probably, some of you, especially us Californians, know this, that is a little quick flash before it goes right into the water. Now, what you want to do is you want to lie down on the beach with your head as close to the ground as possible to watch for that flash. As soon as that flash happens, you jump up. And the height differential between where you were on the ground to where you are and standing up straight will be enough for you to see the flash again. And the reason that happens is because the Earth is not flat, but it's curved. And it's rotating. Do
you think there's a video that we can watch somebody doing this?
I'm pretty sure.
I'm fascinated by this.
But it's fun to do, and it's easy. I've done it before. It's cool.
Okay.
And it's free if you live in you don't need to buy a bunch of equipment. You just need to get to a body of water where you can see that happen. And you don't necessarily need to be a body of water. It can just be somewhere where the sun sets in the west and there's no obstructions.
Okay.
Like you just basically need the sun to hit the horizon.
Okay.
So if you're somewhere where it goes beneath the land, there's no building or trees in the way, then you can do that as well.
Interesting. All right. Sounds like a beach day tomorrow.
Yeah.
It is going to be a good day.
And there's a building in Dubai where people do that as well. But they go up all the way to the top of the elevator that way, and you see it set twice that way too. If you want to do the kind of the Cadillac version of that, go to Dubai and do it that way. Got
it. All right. So there's the test. All right. Yeah. So we are moving into a different segment on the show where it's we just get to relate. You know. So we have these dice that one has all of our senses on it plus body language, and then something to kind of trigger that conversation. And reason that I do this is just to be off the cuff, to be a little vulnerable. We can either use it to get to know each other more, or we can talk about past experiences. We relate through our senses. There's a lot of memories that are stored through people, experiences with people. So that's the kind of stuff that we're going to talk about. But just like normal relating, there are no rules, right? So it's just meant to inspire some conversation. And I'll go first to kind of give you an example, and if you want to roll, then you can roll, or I can take it. So this one, we've got obviously sight, and it's telling us to dare. It could be a dare, but we can talk about a dare. So when I think of sight, it's something we've experienced, something that we've witnessed. So what's coming up for me to kind of to help us on a conversation is, have you had an experience that you didn't really want to do, that someone dared you to do it, and you were glad that you did afterwards? Like something you're like, no, I would never do that. But someone's like, come on, Lamar, let's do it.
I'm trying to think. Yeah, so I'm a father of two, and I feel like I'm often not dared, but prodded to do things I don't want to do. Dads just want to sleep and rest on the weekends and stuff like that. But it's often going out somewhere, doing something new, eating something new. And that's the thing, is like I think the last time I was actually dared and did something, I know a dare I wish I had done and I didn't do. That's, like I said, that's a regret, kind of a negative way of thinking about it.
But it's okay. It's real.
But there's a bridge in the Angeles National Forest called the Bridge to Nowhere. And basically, if I remember correctly, I might be butchering the backstory of this bridge, but it was during the New Deal, and there was a bunch of efforts made to kind of build roads across America and everything like that. And they built this bridge in this forest, trying to make basically a road going from one part of California to another. But there was no road before and no road after it, and the project got halted because they had another idea or something like that. So there's this bona fide bridge in the middle of this forest. It's like basically maybe an hour and a half hike from a certain spot in Azusa, and it's there, and people bungee jump off of it, and so you get the bungee jump off a bridge, but it's in the middle of the really picturesque Angeles National Forest, and I was asked or dared to do that jump, and I just didn't. I was too scared, and I wish I had.
You could still do it.
I still can do it. I probably should.
Yeah.
Just I think the bridge is still. Yeah, you know.
When I start to think of that, and like I worry about like that like, what is it, when the rope snaps back?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, I think I should do it just like as a kind of a bucket list thing.
Yeah.
Like I know, like relatively, like they're like the physics of it all, and they have. It seems extremely safe.
Yeah.
In terms of the way they do it, the only way it would not be safe is if people don't follow the procedure like the way they're supposed to.
Yeah.
But like we get in cars which are like 2-ton bombs full of explosives, and, like, you know, on a regular basis.
And
like,
planes.
Yeah, and planes, you know, and like, but then we have, and like the car thing is funny because we're self-taught, you know. There's some person's not a professional, taught us how to drive, and we all just trust society so that we just get in the car and go. And we're like, oh, that's fine, whatever.
Yeah.
But, you know, but the bungee jumping is deemed much more dangerous than the car thing, you know, so, yeah.
The only reason I would do it, because I can't see myself jumping out of a plane or doing that. The only reason that I might do it is just to have a different perspective on taking a risk, you know, because I do say, like, I have a healthy relationship with risk when it comes to learning, you know, to be exposing myself to my own vulnerability, but I don't take a lot of risk in my physical being.
Right.
Like, I'm not going to, like, try to, you know, I won't even try to do a cartwheel. I'm afraid that I'm going to snap my head off, you know.
Right.
But so I think I would do it with the right context. I might do it.
That's
to,
all.
like,
I can relate to that
physical,
as well too.
yeah.
Yeah, I feel that same way. Like I feel like if someone says, "Eat this," like sure, like
yeah,
let's go here. All right, whatever. You
yeah.
know, jump off this bridge with a rope attached to you. Like I don't know.
Yeah,
like,
that's well, your dad too. I wonder if it would shift. Maybe
this
it would
was
be
when I was much younger.
Yeah.
So like, it's funny that I feel like I might be more inclined to do it as a dad as opposed to not. You know, because I really want my daughters to be brave.
Yeah.
You know, so.
I get that. I
Yeah,
feel that.
yeah.
Do you want to roll or do you want me to roll?
I can roll.
Okay, go ahead. I'll move this over here.
Okay.
Oh, that sounds like a good roll. We got I again.
Yes.
All right, so the other dice says do this means what? So this is kind of a, like, you saw this, you want to bring something up that you experienced or witnessed, and what do you think it means, and we can have a conversation about that. That's what it means, but it could be anything.
Okay. So something I saw, and what does it mean?
Yeah.
Right.
Something you're curious about.
Okay. So I've been driving a lot, like for my job, I stay in Pasadena, but my job is near kind of Carson area. So I drive on the road like every single day, like for about over an hour. Some days more, on a bad day 2 hours, but like a medium bad day, an hour and a half, you know. It's the LA experience.
It is the LA experience.
Yeah. And then it's been getting to me because I've been seeing accidents, you know. It's been uplifting in the sense that, like, cars are pretty safe. Like, I see an accident on a regular basis, but people are walking away from them, which is amazing. But at the same time, it's like in this past month, I've witnessed 2, like, as they happen, you know. And that's just, like, the rush of like, endorphins, adrenaline in your body, and you're just, like, you know, it's, like, just to witness one, you know. It makes me question, am I safe or am I not safe, you know? There's like, because logically it's like, well, if you're on a road and you pass this down, you've done the math, there's like thousands of cars and you've only seen 2 in a month, and you've like, it has a 0.01% chance of happening.
Scientist.
But then like, right, but then there's the other part of me is like, yo, you saw 2 accidents in a month, this is, the world's falling apart, you know, like, you know, it's like, you're gonna die, you know? So it's like you can see something and it can stimulate the analytical part of your brain, and it also can stimulate at the same time the emotional part of your brain, and they can have a battle. And right now in my brain, they're having this battle. It's kind of a tie at this point, you know.
Have you watched the series One Strange Rock yet?
No, not yet.
Have you heard about it?
Yeah. Was that with Will Smith?
Yeah.
Yes.
I think you'd really dig it. And you'll probably be able to say this term better, but it highlights 9 different astronauts that have been to space, and they experience what's called the overview effect.
Yes.
Okay. And so being able to kind of look down on the Earth and go, oh, you know, that's like a living, breathing thing, and you know how small and almost insignificant I am when you look at that. But in this series, I think one of the episodes talks about like how magnificent the forming of our planet really was, and at any given time, like we could just be hit by a meteorite and not be gone. Like there's just a certain risk. Like if we knew how delicate things were, at any time. Like, you know, it puts things into perspective. So I'm wondering what your take on that is. It's like if you're having this, would you say, crisis of conscience of seeing a car accident, when you kind of step up and look at and think about a meteorite could hit us. Like right now, we could be gone. You know?
I remember when I was lecturing a class on like kind of like, it was a class for physics. It was a physics class for people that weren't majoring in physics. Kind of like one of those like prerequisite classes for college students. And I told them just how thin the atmosphere is compared to the rest of the Earth. Yeah. Like it's like onion skin thin. Yeah. Like the thing that keeps us alive on this planet is ridiculously thin compared to the rest of the planet itself. Yeah. And all of the living things on this planet depend upon this thing in one way or another. And you can just look at their eyes. It's like, you know, I feel like the overview effect happens, not for definitely astronauts, but I feel like it happens for people who fly for the first time. Yeah. You know, like when you get out of your city for the first time. I've lived a life where I've got to see people never leave their town, you know, and then finally, for the first time, be in a sense where they can be up in the plane and see, like, what my mom says. She says, like, LA is like a computer grid when you fly in. Yeah. It looks like that. And, but just how it changes people and their perspective once they've seen the city from up above. And I can imagine people always say, travel, see the world, travel, see the world. And that's kind of like maybe a little bit of a portion of the overview effect. Yeah. Because the overview effect is like, not only do you need to travel, but you get to see everywhere you could go. Definitely, definitely. So I think that's interesting.
Yeah, they do cover in one of the episodes the atmosphere, how thin that layer is. Oh, yeah? That's really interesting. If you watch it, let me know. Watch it, yeah. I want to know what you think.
Yeah, definitely.
And I could relate to that too. I remember the first time, the most significant fly-in somewhere out of all the places I've traveled, and I definitely haven't traveled enough. I'd like to go to everywhere, but haven't done enough. But the one that was most significant to me is seeing New York for the first time. And it just looked like, my first thought was, and I must have been in my 20s, like it was like stalagmites in a cave, like just seeing all these tall buildings like protruding out of the earth, and like, and thinking of all those people down there, and the history of like when those buildings were built, and it is interesting to be in a plane and look down, and then flying over just our country and the shapes that have been created and on the different crops and things. It is very interesting.
And to think that someone touched all that. Yeah. You know, like there's a person or a group of people who touch all that land, you know, and then have, you know, that land, that land becomes food, and it feeds people around the world. Yeah. Yeah,
it's really awesome. All right, well, so couple last things that we get to do together. This has been really wonderful.
Thank you.
I really appreciate you being here. So I ask everybody to just kind of be with me in this question and thought around what makes a encounter with another human being really exceptional. Like, do you have, first of all, what comes to mind when I say that phrase, and then do you have an example of something really exceptional happening with another human being that you kind of think of that happened maybe recently, or maybe it was pivotal in your development?
I think exceptional encounters with people are the ones that kind of change your trajectory or expand it, you know. There's a lot of people who are wonderful people, strong people, amazing people, and but they're not all going to be exceptional to you, but they'll be exceptional to someone else. You know, the exceptional encounter is something you don't need. It's something. It's a magic moment, basically, and I've had the privilege of having lots of them. And I think that's one of the things that has put me in the position that I have been in, because I've had the privilege of having those moments, recognizing them, and doing something with them. You know, I would love to just rattle off a long list of people, you know, that have been exceptional, you know, to me and to others, and it's so hard. It's so, when I think about it, it's overwhelming. It's kind of like to stop and think about what it is. But if I had to say one, I would definitely say my mom. You know, I know it sounds like really trite and contrived and very hallmarky, but like she was definitely the foundation and number one exceptional person who had the biggest influence on me. And the one thing that I would say that made her stand out was the fact that she gave me the gift of looking for that and knowing that and recognizing that that exceptional moments could happen and creating them around her. You know, she made a lot of sacrifices for my well-being and in my success, and put me in a lot of positions and places where the best things could happen for me. You know, and she broke a lot of cycles that were negative for her, but never touched me. You know, so and that's a huge thing. It's one thing to break a cycle. It's another thing to lift somebody up, but to do both is mammoth, you know. And she did a lot of that at her own expense, and I find her like basically her parenting and her love and her care, it's instructional. So yeah, I mean, I don't think I would. Some of the people I've met across the time after her, I wouldn't even known what to do with them wasn't for her. You know what I mean? Yeah,
at least, so what I'm hearing, if I got this right, is your mom helped you appreciate that these moments can happen and maybe be present enough to allow them to happen. Because, you know, it's easy to kind of say this is safe, this is not, and just kind of walk around with a lot of boundaries and restrictions. And I think what I'm getting to and why I'm so tuned into this year, really focusing on this, is you don't know where these moments are going to happen. They can happen on the street or the elevator, but to be present for them is what is special. Like to either show up for somebody else or just to be there in the moment and go, yeah, that was really real. And I feel you. Like I love having moments with strangers where I'm just, for a moment, like I feel them, physically I feel them. Every part of me is like, I am really connected to you right now, you know? And like, I don't have to know anything else about that person. It's just that moment. For me, a lot of the ones that I reflect on, feel like it was like beyond even the person and I, like something else got entered in, spiritually, whatever you want to call it. And it made that moment so significant and pivotal that I'll never forget it. I
mean, the last one I had was actually yesterday. I was talking to a person who I kind of stumbled upon across LinkedIn. And there was someone who was a student trying to do a school project for a nonprofit. Now I was running the JUICE program I was talking about before. And now they're like a kind of investor working with doing accounts. And they wanted to work with me on doing that. So it was, and they were really fired up about it. And we had a really great conversation about just like planning for the future and success. But it was an impassioned one. It wasn't just one that was like going through the motions of, you're such and such years old, you should have this account or that account. But it was actually talking about just the idea of like living life, conquering things, going through struggles, trying to not repeat mistakes that were made before you, and kind of having kind of like placing that kind of a conversation around finances. And I think I know from my own experience, I know from watching others as well, there's a lot of emotions attached to finances. But that was the most recent one I had, and like it felt. Rarely do you talk to like an investment banker and feel good about it emotionally afterwards. You know, you feel like someone just gave you a homework assignment. Just like, but this time it felt like I was doing something good for my future, which I knew I was, not just mine but my children as well. So
that's nice. That's nice. All right, well, we are almost done. So the last thing that we get to do together is I like to issue a social challenge of the week, for something for people to do on their own, just to have a different experience with themselves. Sometimes they're with buddies, you know, but just experience, not me saying, hey, you should be a certain way or think a certain way, but you know, here's an experience I'm inviting you to have that may change your mind about something or give you new knowledge. So what I'm inspired by from our conversation is back to the pancake, you know, conversation about finding something that you're curious about, and instead of trying to prove something right or wrong, executing some sort of, or initiating some sort of experiment. That's kind of what I'm thinking. You have thoughts on that? Like, add to that?
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. I think that we're often attached to our ways of doing things. I like doing things different all the time. I like going to restaurants and getting different things on the menu.
Yeah.
I like trying to take different routes from one place to another. Waze and Google Maps and Apple Maps aren't always right.
Yeah.
You know, about the most efficient way of doing things. They're based on like larger algorithms,
yeah.
but you know they're not perfect. And yeah, just trying different things out. So I'm all about that.
Yeah. So I have an example, and I think you just gave a good one. Is yes, it's fun to get lost sometimes.
Right,
like I remember when we didn't have apps to get around.
Thomas Guide.
Yeah, and you get lost, and then you know something. It's fine, you know.
Right.
If you have the time, you don't want to do that when you're going to a meeting.
Right.
So that's a good one. Is just to like turn the app off and turn down a street and just see what happens.
Right.
Like I just bought a juicer. Like I'm obsessed with juicing right now, but I was also a little worried about all the waste, like what I'm gonna do with it. So I've been testing, like rolling that out, making like little crackers, because I like doing like a vegetable thing. Or my new thing is trying to figure out how to like make a veggie patty with it, and researching some different recipes and just playing. And a couple of them have been disasters, and I ate it, but I wouldn't feed it to anybody else. But that kind of thing is what we're talking about. It's like I don't really have. I didn't set out to go, I'm going to make the best veggie patty ever. You know, that's not where I am. It's just like, oh, well, I just made this awesome beet drink. Right. Let me put an egg in here and and see what happens. Yeah. So that's what we're encouraging, I think, this week.
Yeah.
You like it?
Yeah, I like it too.
All right. So social challenge of the week is to, you know, be curious. First, it starts, your top level is just be curious about something. And instead of saying, you know, having an absolute conclusion in mind, executing your own tests and having a little fun with it. And if you want to bring a buddy into it, that's what you can do that. It's up to you. It's your experiment, right?
Yes.
All right. Well, that concludes our time together. I really enjoyed this. I think this was a really good conversation. You guys, I hope there were some things in here that inspired you. You have seen Lamar's social media handle on the screen. If you want to reach out to him, please do so. You know,
I don't bite. I'm very
you don't
friendly.
bite. I feel that. I can tell you, he does not bite. He's very nice. You can always reach out to me. I'd love to hear from you, especially on the social challenges. I really get excited when someone reaches out and says, I did that, and my friend and I had this new experience, or my mom and I had a conversation that we weren't able to have because we tried this thing together. So love it, love it, love it when you reach out on that. And you know, so please do that. And as always, you know, check out our sponsors and affiliates on the site. They help me do this, and you know, really appreciate it if you can sponsor them. I thank you for being here with us today. And as always, I'm just going to ask everybody, what are you doing today, like today, right now, to make an exceptional encounter happen? See you next week.